The Nebraska State Capitol stands as a symbol of governance and history, with strict rules governing its spaces and exhibits. When State Senator Machaela Cavanaugh removed portraits from the PragerU Founders Museum exhibit on January 7, 2026, her actions highlighted a sharp contrast between the treatment of elected officials and private citizens. A regular Nebraskan committing the same or similar acts faces immediate criminal consequences, investigations, and penalties, while Cavanaugh encountered no charges, leveraging her position and excuses to avoid accountability. This article explores various scenarios for a private citizen removing items from the Capitol, the expected charges and responses from authorities, and a comparison to Cavanaugh's case, including her abuse of power and the immunities that protected her. It also addresses general conflicts of interest between legislators and law enforcement, with specific relevance to this incident. Scenarios for a private citizen removing Capitol displays. A private Nebraska citizen entering the state capitol and removing authorized displays, such as the PragerU portraits, encounters swift enforcement from security and law enforcement. The Capitol operates as a public building during business hours, with over 60 cameras and constant patrols by the Nebraska State Patrol, NSP, Capitol Security Division. Any removal of property counts as unauthorized interference, triggering responses ranging from on-site detention to full prosecution. Here are key scenarios. In the base scenario, removing portraits and placing them in another room within the Capitol, the citizen commits theft by unlawful taking and criminal mischief. NSP confronts the person immediately if observed, demanding return of the items. Regardless of whether the items are returned or not, the citizen is charged with theft by unlawful taking, Section 28 to 511, and criminal mischief, Section 28 to 519. The act of taking the portraits off the wall and moving them without permission is a crime on its own. Returning the items does not erase the offense, though it may be considered in plea negotiations or sentencing. The charges are filed based on the value of the portraits and the disruption caused, with the grade of the crime escalating accordingly. Misdemeanor if the value is low, under $500. Class 1 misdemeanor if $500 to $1,500, and felony if $1,500 or more. The cops do not simply let someone remove a painting from a wall without charging them. The removal itself triggers the charges, and NSP proceeds with booking, citation, or arrest even if the portraits are returned on the spot. Minimum outcome involves a misdemeanor citation, a fine of $500 to $1,000, and a ban from Capitol grounds. Maximum includes felony charges if the value or disruption is substantial, leading to up to 2 years in prison and $10,000 fine, plus restitution for rehanging costs. If the citizen takes the items home instead of relocating them, the crime escalates to outright theft with intent to deprive. NSP reviews footage, identifies the person via facial recognition or vehicle plates, and issues an arrest warrant. Minimum penalty is a Class 1 misdemeanor with 1 year jail. Maximum is a Class IIA felony if value exceeds $5,000, with up to 20 years prison. Investigation involves home search warrants, property seizure, and full prosecution by the Lancaster County Attorney. In a scenario where the citizen removes multiple items from different exhibits, charges multiply to include vandalism and littering. NSP detains on site, leading to multiple misdemeanor counts. Minimum is community service and fines totaling $2,000. Maximum involves felony mischief for widespread disruption, with 5 years prison and civil lawsuits from exhibit sponsors for damages. For a citizen removing items and causing minor damage, tearing frames, penalties increase with criminal mischief enhancements. Minimum is a Class 2 misdemeanor with 6 months jail. Maximum is a Class 4 felony with 2 years prison if damage exceeds $1,500. NSP coordinates with Lincoln Police for off-site arrests if the person flees. If the removal occurs after hours or involves breaking in, Burglary charges apply under Nebraska Revised Statutes Section 28 to 507. Minimum is a Class IA felony with 20 years prison. Maximum adds aggravated assault if confronted by security, leading to 50 years. Investigation includes forensic evidence from cameras and fingerprints. In all scenarios, the citizen expects immediate NSP response, booking at Lancaster County Jail, and court appearances. Minimum treatment involves release on citation for minor offenses. Maximum includes detention without bail for felonies, public trial, and criminal record impacting employment. Treatment from authorities for a private citizen. Authorities treat a private citizen's actions as standard criminal violations. NSP Capitol Security Division holds primary jurisdiction, handling patrols, and initial arrests. If observed, troopers detain the person, seize the items, and charge on-site. Reported incidents lead to footage review and home visits for questioning. Investigations last days to weeks, with warrants for non-cooperation. Lancaster County Attorney files charges pursuing convictions with evidence from cameras. Minimum response is a warning for compliant returns. Maximum involves full prosecution, plea deals for first offenders, probation, fines, or trial for repeat offenders, jail time. Civil suits from PragerU add damages for interference. Possible crimes for a private citizen, city, county, state, federal. A private citizen faces crimes across jurisdictions for the same act as Cavanaugh. City, Lincoln theft vandalism, Chapter 9.24, for removing property. Disturbing the peace, Section 9.20.010, for disruption. Disorderly conduct for creating chaos. County, Lancaster theft for unauthorized control. Criminal trespass to property for interference. Vandalism as destruction of property, receiving stolen property for possession. State, Nebraska theft by unlawful taking, Section 28-511, for seizing portraits. Criminal mischief, Section 28-519, for tampering. Unauthorized use, Section 28-514, for relocation. Trespass to chattels for meddling. Vandalism, Section 28-524, for alteration. Littering, Section 28-523, for disorder. Federal. Theft of government property, Section 641. If America 250 tie argued. Destruction of government property, Section 1361, for devaluation. Penalties range from misdemeanors, fines, short jail, to felonies, prison time, based on value and intent. Comparison to Machaela Cavanaugh's incident. Cavanaugh removed 8 to 10 frames from her hallway, taking them to her office before NSP returned them undamaged the same day. She claimed rule violations against wall adhesions, but this excuse masked abuse of power. No charges filed. NSP confirmed no investigation. She apologized on the floor, facing only a reprimand request from a GOP senator, which led to no expulsion or censure. A private citizen receives no such leniency. Cavanaugh's position allowed her to avoid arrest, using her office to justify the act as rule enforcement. This abuse of power, exploiting legislative access to commit acts a citizen cannot, highlights her ability to get away with crimes like theft and mischief that would land a regular Nebraskan in jail. Hate crime enhancements and other possible crimes. Hate crime enhancements apply if the removal shows bias motivation, such as targeting white male founders' portraits due to prejudice against race or gender. Nebraska Section 28-111 enhances penalties for bias against protected classes, race, gender, national origin, ancestry, elevating mischief or theft to felonies. Federal Section 249 criminalizes bias-motivated acts with 10 years prison. Section 245 for interference with education based on bias. Other crimes include burglary for entry intent, Section 28-507, menacing for intimidation, Section 28-310, stalking for focus pursuit, Section 28-311.03. City-county add public nuisance for degradation. Federal adds conspiracy, Section 371. If coordinated, these tie to the removal as bias-driven offenses. Abuse of power and immunity for Nebraska legislators. Nebraska legislators wield significant immunity and power, enabling abuse. The Constitution, Article 3, Section 15, grants privilege from arrest during sessions and 15 days before after, except for treason, felony, or breach of peace. This shields senators from immediate consequences for misdemeanors like Cavanaugh's removal. Abuse of power occurs when legislators misuse authority for personal or partisan ends, such as Cavanaugh's removal under rule pretext. Legislators have unfettered Capitol access, allowing actions citizens cannot take without prosecution. Immunity protects official duties, but not clear crimes. However, Dieter's charges, as seen here, collusion and conflicts of interest between legislators and law enforcement. Conflicts of interest arise when legislators' oversight roles intersect with law enforcement duties, leading to collusion. Generally, Nebraska legislators control budgets for NSP and correctional facilities, creating influence over investigations. This power dynamic discourages probes into legislator misconduct to avoid funding cuts or retaliation. In Cavanaugh's case, NSP quickly returned the items without charges or investigation, despite footage showing removal. This suggests collusion. NSP, under executive branch, but interacting with legislators, avoided conflict. Cavanaugh's prior disputes with authorities, like denied access to the McCook ICE facility, claiming illegal under state law allowing legislator visits, show tension but also leverage. The facility denial violated her oversight rights, yet no enforcement followed, indicating conflicts where law enforcement defers to legislators. In the portrait incident, NSP's inaction reflects similar deference, allowing Cavanaugh to evade accountability as citizen faces. Conclusion: the disparity in justice. A private Nebraskan removing Capitol displays faces swift arrests, charges, and penalties from misdemeanors to felonies across jurisdictions. Scenarios like relocation or theft home lead to investigations, fines, jail, and records. Authorities enforce strictly with no leniency. In contrast, Cavanaugh's abuse of power and immunity allowed her to commit similar acts without consequence, exposing a system where legislators operate above the law. This disparity undermines public trust, calling for reforms to ensure equal accountability. Conflicts with law enforcement further enable this, as seen in Cavanaugh's case, where deference protected her while a citizen suffers full prosecution.